Good evening, good morning, good night, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to this special edition of the Broken Not Shattered, the BNet podcast. My guest tonight is someone who's very dear to my heart, my sister, my friend. Um, she's actually the first female guest we had when we started this podcast about 3 years or 3.5 years ago. Uche Uju, USI, welcome back to the Broken Not Shattered. My team insisted that they wanted to have the first person or the first people that we first of all hired. And I told them to go searching. And when they brought your name up, I'm like, are they sure? And at the end of the day, they were quite correct. You were the first. Wow. Sister, thank you so much. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm actually quite touched, really that long and
I know.
interesting.
We've come a long way with this podcast. When I started this thing, I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what was happening, but I just knew that there was an inner spiritual voice that said, "Just start."
Yeah.
When it was first given to me 5 years ago, I was in a very dark place, which I couldn't even touch it. I just couldn't touch it. It was a very dark place, but I wrote it down and I kept it, and saying that, okay, one day I'll start. I thought I was going to write it as a book. The more I thought about it, and the title was supposed to be Broken, Not Shattered. I just couldn't get to write the book about it. Then as I kept on playing it out, I found out this could be a podcast that has now become a platform for those who don't know what the BNS stands for. It's Broken, Not Shattered. That has now become a platform that gives people hope, that inspires life, that empowers people, gives them a voice to the voiceless, and just lift up people from the ashes. And so it's been an interesting 3.5 years. People just think I just want to show my face on the podcast and just talk, and that's why I don't care what they think or what they feel. This is just me. I got these new glasses, so they are actually reading glasses that are prescribed. I told them, just tint it a bit. Now they've made it look as if to say I'm wearing bones. But you know what? It is what it is.
It is what it is. It looks good.
This could be my new brand very soon. So if you guys not see me with this, please, I'm not trying to. This is just me. I just picked it up 2 days ago, and I can't afford to just look at it. It looks cool. All right, enough of me. Let's talk.
Marrying yourself.
On life for there are 1,000 people watching us that do this. But you know what? I learned if you can't bet on yourself, you can't bet on anything else. So I believe in myself because of the God who I stand upon to make things happen in my life. And friends,
There you go.
like you. Uche, since the last time we saw you, a lot has happened in your life. The topic today is family, grief, and restoration. Let's start from anywhere you feel comfortable. How has life been since the last 3 years, and what has changed? This is a conversation between two good friends.
I'm not sure when you say start from where it's comfortable. I'm wondering which of that is comfortable. Well, family is comfortable because it's that's your anchor, I guess, for those who have families. My family is, I think I'm blessed to have been brought into this world through that family. And God, in His infinite wisdom, who knows who has come here for what, didn't make a mistake to put us where He put us. And so starting with, that's the order which you gave it: family, grief, and restoration.
Let's talk about that for a minute. You said
Yeah.
but God knows basically how He puts people. What is the role of family in your own perspective? What is family for, and who is constituted as family?
So biologically, your family is the avenue through which you have come into existence. That's primary, family. And then spiritually, you've got family that you have anchored and aligned with based on your spiritual orientation and beliefs. Socially, you have family that you've chosen, which are usually your friends, or some people it's their families, their work family, because that's where they spend all of their time. So at the end of the day, your family is where you are anchored, and it's where you believe, or where you're nurtured. Unfortunately, some people have not had a very good experience from an early age, um, with the family through which they came into life. And that would be uh, unfortunate, really, because most of not almost everybody's formative years is what nurtures you before you become an adult. There's no person that wasn't a child first, and if you've come through a family unit that's broken, then chances are that you're going to be fighting some of those wounds much longer in later in life. You know? So, my family, it's quite a close knit family, as you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, and we're blessed to be very close siblings, of which we lost one last year.
Right.
So yeah, and actually, straight funny enough, tomorrow is the 1 year remembrance.
Wow.
Yeah, 21st.
Wow.
And my dad also is late, and I can tell you, because it was in such close succession,
Proximity. Mm-hmm.
then they're very different, two totally different losses,
Mm.
both painful in their own rights, but very different.
Mm.
And I think finally I can say, when I say to people my condolences, it means something totally different to me than it used to mean when I was growing up, and I hear this person lost someone and we're like, oh, I'm
Mm.
so sorry. Oh, I can imagine how you feel. No, you can't
Mm-mm.
imagine.
You got to be there.
Nah, you can't. Even if you were there, even if it was your child, you have different relationships with different children. It's never the same for any two people, you know. And I'm sure my siblings and I all feel the grief in different ways, even though it's a shared grief. But for once, finally, we are able to grieve together as a family, because we're all adults now.
Mm.
So, yeah, I'm just covering everything in a nutshell because I know you're going to dig deeper. So let me just do
Well, well, actually, no, no. Just go with the flow. Actually,
all
I
my
don't.
definitions.
Well,
And
yes.
what does restoration look like? It's a journey.
Mm.
That's how I would see it. I would say that restoration is a journey that we never quite. I'm not sure if anyone would say that they're 100% restored in on this side of eternity. We become we kind of, I think, perfection for us as human beings who are totally imperfect would be the place of surrender, surrendering the pain, surrendering the trauma, or whatever it is that we hold about the thing that we're restoring, being restored from, to God as the one who comforts beyond our ability to comfort one another or ourselves, to the point where it no longer has the power
Mm.
to
Mm.
make us feel broken.
Mm.
Not that we're coping, not
Mm.
that we're learning how to live with it, no, but kind of like forgiveness, where the sting of the thing that you were holding is no longer painful, in the regard where it can cripple you or stop you from being able to function. But knowing that every time it comes up, you know how sometimes somebody has done you something so bad, and then whenever they call the person's name, your heart starts to twist in a funny way. And
Mm.
then you wake up one morning and they call the person's name, and you're like, oh, then you know, oh, okay,
Mm.
that one's gone. You didn't forget the event, but it
Mm.
doesn't have the power over you anymore.
Wow.
This is what I'm talking about. So yeah, that's in a nutshell my
Yeah.
definition's
I,
done.
no, that's fine. Good place to start. the last comment you made about calling people's name and getting a few twisted, I can relate to that. When they call certain names, my body just cringe and so I know right now that when they call my name, people will be cringing and they're twisting. So I know too. Yeah, let's not go there. I know some cringing and twisting are going on, but yeah. So that's life. But at the end of the day, I have come to resolve that everything balances itself out. I don't know how God does it, and that's why He's God and we're not. He just balances out, especially when you get to the point of surrender. Um, none of us are perfect. We always make mistakes. He knows each man's destiny and each man's purpose, and sometimes we might want to go to direction A, and He says, no, 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 no. As much as that's what you want, if you've asked me, I want you to go to direction C, not even B, F, C, or sometimes even all the way to F,
Or stand still.
or don't move, exactly.
Stand still.
Don't move, and because see the salvation of who I am as your God. But yeah, I agree. However, though, I know you started off by talking about family, and in your case, yes, you have a very close knit family. But it's sad that a lot of people out there might not share that same experience that you and I might have. I have a very tight family. When I hear about sibling rivalry and homes or families breaking apart to the point that brothers don't communicate or sisters don't relate or brothers and sisters don't relate, where do you think that comes from? Is it the dysfunctionality of the parents, or was it something that they picked up somewhere along the line? How do people that were all together under one roof all of a sudden get to the point of not even relating to each other or communicating? What do you think might have happened somewhere along the line that could have actually caused that to take place?
I'm not going to say that I'm an authority on any of these, but I would use my life, my own experiences. I'm hoping that I have my siblings' permission to share some of these, but the path that I'm going to toe is this. Not every there are a lot of gray areas, and we're all individuals. We may all be born from one womb in one family, but each person comes out with their own DNA, their own mannerisms that they learn. We may all have gone to the same school, but we all have different best friends.
That's right.
And what forms our character is what we're exposed to, and what our natural inclinations are, what our natural tendencies are. So that's on the personal level. Now, unfortunately, I cannot speak about my life without the spiritual angle of it, because I do believe, without apology, that until we have come to a place where we can replicate the breath that keeps us alive, until that happens, there's only one higher power, and I call him God through Christ. And when you know that the area of your gifting that's where your greatest struggle would be. Because in the infancy of anything is when it can be killed, not when it is now mature and able to discern and choose for themselves. So as children, some of us have suffered various types of trauma where our carers were not necessarily available to defend us, and we have learned to manage our exposure to things, and we've learned ways of coping. And we've grown up with these tendencies without even knowing that they were learned. Because nobody is born with the tendency to steal, for instance.
That's right.
Or
You learned
yeah,
this.
or born with promiscuity.
Right.
Mostly when you find a young person, really young person, a child, really 10, 12, 13, showing those tendencies of promiscuity and whatever, it's a cry for help.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, in our culture, it's like, this child is stubborn, this child is bad, this child is this child.
Mm.
But that child was taught something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, what tends to happen is in a family, if, for instance, two people are doing very well and the other two are not doing so well, they tend to rely on the two who are doing very well, and the two who are doing very well can have carer fatigue. Like, listen, I have my own family now, I have priorities, I can't keep jumping to your rescue. And some bad
Resent,
blood.
resentment comes in. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's bad blood. It's unspoken because now you can't really say anything. You need this person's help. And then one parent dies that held you together, and all hell breaks loose. And now you're quarreling. And just the fact that that resentment is there, it's never been dealt with. It's never been talked about. You've never gone through the process of identifying what really why is it that every time I say something, it doesn't matter whether it's making sense, you're going to say no. We've never gone to look at the reason behind it, and we allow it to fester. Then now we're all adults and maybe everybody's doing well. And they say, no, this was daddy's house. He says we should not sell it. I don't agree. No, I don't agree. Then we go to court. And it just degenerates. And
Yeah.
that's when the Spirit of God is not guiding you.
Yes, sir.
You're not submitting to the Spirit that says love your neighbor as you love yourself.
That's correct.
So now you haven't even figured out what the problem is with you, so you don't love yourself yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now how can you give what you don't have?
That's true. That's true.
So it just breaks everything down. Not to say that there are no diabolical situations. I've heard
Yes.
some nasty
Yes. 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 That's right. Yes.
I have heard some nasty things,
Mm.
but I can assure you that all of them, they stem out of a lack of spiritual anchoring.
Mm. Wow. That's very good. You kind of hit the ball out of the park on that one. Um, there's something I read many years ago when I was doing some of my studies about early childhood trauma. When that takes place, oof, especially for, in most cases, young girls, if they go through a level of abuse, they grow up very promiscuous or very withdrawn. And like you said, that is their own lashing out, calling for help. So it's either they're very withdrawn, they go to a point of they just go so back, so dark, no communication, or you just see them doing crazy stuff out there, and that's their own cry for help.
Yeah.
And if you're not in the right community, you don't have the right support system, it could just continue, and they hadn't addressed those things. So yes, so if there's anybody out there who's going through some, it's okay not to be okay. Just get help. Yeah, get help. Make sure you find proper help. I'm a Christian, so I don't tell people not to go to their spiritual leaders for help, because sometimes you can get that help. But make sure that you're getting the balance that you need, that will deal with both the spiritual, the emotional, and any other component of your life that needs that. Uche, we're going to take a break now, and when we come back, we'll talk about grief and share your story of how the journey has been and how God Himself has helped to put you back, at least, to a place where you can come and share the story, hoping that someone else will listen and that will inspire them, and then we'll wrap up, okay? I promise not to keep you too long. Welcome to the BNS podcast. My guest is Miss Uche Uju, and we were talking about family. Now we're going to talk about grief and restoration. Uche, earlier on you had shared a story about how you lost a brother and how you lost your dad almost the same time. I remember that time it was a very tough and dark time for you and the family. Would you like to share your experience and use it and use this platform to encourage somebody else who might have gone through that, or who is going through it, or who has never gone through it and eventually might see it? I lost my dad at a very sensitive time. You know my story. I've shared it with you several times before. And I know how that changed my whole life. Losing my dad is one thing, losing a brother, different story altogether. So,
Yeah. So it's a like I said, restoration is a journey. It doesn't when we think, oh yeah, by the time I do X or Y or Z, I will be okay.
that's correct.
It has a funny way of showing up at the least convenient times.
Wow.
And without that anchoring in Christ, I don't know that I would even be able to have a conversation about anything. So the thing is, this was not my first sibling. That's not the first sibling I've
Oh,
lost.
wow. Wow. Okay.
My very first loss of a sibling, I was a child.
Mm. Yes, that's true.
Unfortunately, my mother, who was young herself, she must have been in her 20s,
Mm.
was ill advised. And she was told not to tell me that I was too young. But as a child, even then, I knew there was something wrong. It was just me and my sister. And then all of a sudden, one morning, she's gone, and nobody can tell me anything. And for a long time, it felt like she just left. And so you grow up expecting other relationships, putting that threshold. This is somebody who never had an opportunity to disappoint me. So how am I going to measure other relationships on that yardstick? But that's what happens,
Mm.
right? So when my dad passed, and I was finding it very difficult. It was a very difficult time. I couldn't understand the depth of the pain. And so I thought this is not right because I had a good relationship with my dad. So it
Mm.
wasn't a grief of regret, like, oh, I should have done, I should have done. If there's
Mm.
anything money buy that I had, and God knows He blessed me early in life,
Sure
I
did.
did it. I did it. So there was nothing I felt, oh, I mean, we can always do more. I'm not a,
Mm.
I don't, we could always do more. But I was satisfied with the fact that if it was materially, there's nothing I didn't do that was within my power. If it was emotionally, yeah, my dad and I had a good relationship. Let's put it that way. I was a daddy's girl.
That is good.
So that pain did not make sense. And now my daughter wanted to see someone because she said she was struggling. And I thought, oh, yes, now I failed as a mother as well. So, everything was just happening at the same time. And I thought, you know what, maybe I need to see someone. And I got into grief counseling. And it was during that period I realized that I had held my mother responsible for my
For,
sister's death.
wow.
And that was the reason we didn't really have a relationship. My
Mm.
mom and I didn't really have a relationship. It wasn't even it wasn't a secret. It wasn't a secret. And for the first time, I sat and spoke with my mother, and I had proper conversations. Proper conversations was during my brother's funeral for the first time without anybody there, just two of us, which is why I say restoration is a journey.
Journey. Wow.
And she has written her own book, which I haven't seen yet, but my sisters told me about it.
Wow.
And this was me encouraging her because she's a stoic, you can't see her pain, you will not see her cry. And I thought, you need to talk. You might
Get,
not be able to talk
get it
to
out.
us,
Mm.
you need to get it out
Mm.
somehow.
Mm.
So that grief process,
Mm.
right? Learning that there are over 40 events, natural life events that can cause us grief that we don't sit still to look at. to process and identify, even moving homes,
Mm.
the loss of a dog, a pet,
Mm.
things that we might look at as trivial. Sometimes the loss of a job, not just because it's a job, it could be the circumstances around the person at the time when that job loss came. We wouldn't understand the impact. There's so many things that we might call trivial, and you would say, where we come from in Nigeria, it's like, are you the first? Not the
Right.
first. Just brush yourself, pick yourself up by your bootstraps and keep going and keep going. But that place of self-awareness is where I think my own recovery from grief started, until I became aware of the causes and my own tendencies, and then sitting still long enough with myself to say, yeah, you've not always been good. Admitting it. You've not always been the greatest friend. You've not always been the best sister, because we can hide behind so many things. But if we know the reason, then we can actually give ourselves grace for the times that we did not meet up. Like, speaking for myself, for those times when I didn't meet up to the standards that even I set, because now I understand what caused it. Now I understand I why this was my own defense mechanism. Now I understand why I couldn't go to a party if I wasn't the one driving. Now I understood, different things, reasons why I made certain calls. I was able to put those things to one side and say, okay, I need to grieve this loss. I need to say sorry to my sister that I was angry that she left. I need to, and
Mm.
nurture the child so she could rest, or else she will keep showing up in important meetings and throwing tantrums because you haven't sorted that side of you
And in other
out.
relationships also too. Yeah.
In every other, you end up
People
bleeding
showing
over
up.
people that didn't cut you.
Mm-hmm.
You end up, I was the typical, before you leave me, I am gone.
Mm.
So even if a relationship might have lasted, might have been good, I'm not waiting to find out. The minute the person starts to show certain signs, I wouldn't deal with confrontations like an adult. I would throw a tantrum. If it's not going my way, then this person is about to leave. Right, then I'm gone. Because that was what my brain as a child framed it to be. Before you leave me, I'm going to go because this other person left. So grief therapy is important for everyone to identify, where am I on this on this continuum? Where am I? Because if you don't find where you are, then it's difficult to navigate or to map the course that you need to take to get to where you want to be.
Wow.
And that process brought me to really finding God for myself beyond what I've been taught, on learning so many practices that are religious but nothing to do with God.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
And then, yeah, learning for myself that this being is not man, and
Mm.
we can't relate to him in
Right.
that way, or else I'm relating to a God I've created and not the God of the Bible.
Mm.
There's a different God here. So, yeah, this grief process, I can't tell you that it's anywhere close to done. 2020, 2023, December 28th, because I went into overdrive, I went into just keep going, just keep going. All the things were happening, lost my home, lost this, lost that. And I just kept pushing, just keep pushing, just keep. And then one day I woke up and I was in the stroke ward.
Oh wow.
Yeah, was
Mm.
in hospital, and I looked around me, everybody there. I was the only person who could get up and walk around. And I just thought, this God just has such a sense of humor, because If you looked at me and I wasn't talking, you wouldn't know there was anything wrong. But everybody there was being bathed in their bed. There was one other person who could walk up and down, but you could see that she didn't have the use of her whole right side of her body. And as I lay there, I was just like, Lord, what are you telling me? Why am I here? What is
So you
this?
had a partial stroke?
Yeah, that's what they said. I don't know, but I couldn't see myself. So I didn't know that the whole one side of my face was, frozen, was done. I couldn't even eat. So this is the restoration I'm talking about. It's that process of letting go and letting God and ensuring that you recognize that everything He has told you to do, you cannot do it without Him. Knowing that our need for God is half of our journey done, right? So in the midst of grieving, in the midst of all of that, I am now in hospital. I'm like, do you know, this is really weird, because if I didn't wake up tomorrow morning, nothing else will stop.
Yeah, life will continue.
Yeah. So taking the time to look after yourself, it's not for you. Primarily, it's you who gets the benefits, but it's for those whom you have been called to serve with your testimony, to serve with your gifting, the skills that God has allowed you to develop, and to glorify Him, because He didn't put you here for nothing. My eyes are not in front for nothing. It could have been behind.
That's right.
And so yeah,
Wow.
restoration, I don't know, but I know that we're on that journey, and it will be complete eventually. And the other day I looked in the mirror and I was like, Lord, you've healed me, I know. So why are there still residual signs of this thing that happened? And why? Because when I smile, or when I chew, sometimes one eye closes, on these involuntary movements happen on my face, and I was becoming a bit irritable, like, why? And He says, oh, this is what I heard in my spirit. Until you start talking about it, I was like, oh my God.
Oh wow. There you go. And who
Until
and
He
who and
shared.
who would have
And then
thought that?
He reached out to me, not even 3 days later, and I was like, yeah, well, yeah,
Well, I must say that looking at you physically from here, you look great. There's no
thank you.
sign of anything. Like you said, the Lord has definitely healed you. But I also know that sometimes those scars are necessary um, to keep us grounded and remind us of, you're not all that in a bag of chips, really. So
Yep.
just take it easy, and that's how I handle my scars. I have several scars. Some of them you can't see, most of them you can't see them. They're mostly invisible. Some of them are hidden.
Yeah.
People keep on asking me, there's one. I have a scar here. I don't know if my audience can see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a scar, right? And people think that I got it when I was in cult or fraternity back in the days, but it's not that. My siblings are laughing now because they know exactly where I got that scar. And I think I was about 5 years old or 6 years old, and we were playing cricket at the back of our house in London, England, at that young age.
Yeah.
And I ran and couldn't stop running. I put my hand on the glass window, and my hand went through,
Oh my goodness.
opened me up. I could see my bones literally. And my brother, who is my older brother, put me on his back and rushed me across the street to get me treatment, because the clinic was right opposite where we lived in North London. And that's my story here. But beyond this beyond this story, the same guy who I jumped on his back to save him, shortly after, allowed a candle to burn underneath my mattress
Oh
to the
my
point that I
gosh.
almost choked. Because he's always into his own world. I know he's laughing right now, but these are family stories that we have among ourselves. But yeah, but at the end of the day, it's these are scars we have. Some of them emotional, some of them physical, some of them
Yeah.
even spiritual. But God, in His infinite mercy, keeps us going to share
Yeah.
these stories to encourage someone else, wherever they are. Thank you, Uche, for coming to join us on the BNS podcast after 3.5 years to share this awesome story. Just out of curiosity, before we wrap up, because I know we've crossed over our time, why wouldn't you drive yourself if you're going to? Why must you drive yourself if you're going to a party? I never knew that. That's interesting. Thinking about it now, it makes a little bit of sense. But yeah, you know what? You can tell me later on because I couldn't understand that. Listen,
It is one of those defense mechanisms that we develop as we're growing up because of things that have happened to us. So it's not even it's it was I shared it just to share that, you know, a lot of
certain
the
things.
unconscious decisions that we make, they're born out of something that it will require you to sit still with yourself long enough for the spirit to reveal it to you so that you can say, okay, so this is why this happens, and moderate yourself differently. Not that it's a bad thing, but at least you know why.
Right.
And you can give yourself grace for it. I mean, without that Holy Spirit involvement in my own life and my family's life, I'm not sure that we would still be as close as we were today, because these things happen. It happens where we take different turns based on whoever has our ears and whatever we have allowed, to come into our purview. So if anyone has a broken down relationship with their siblings and what have you, know the spirit that's behind it. It's not the person. If you're fighting the person, you're fighting the wrong thing. It's important to know the spirit behind what they're doing and why they're doing it, and separate the two. Jesus said to Peter, "Get thee behind me, Satan." That wasn't Satan. They were speaking to the spirit that influenced him.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's my 2 pence.
Yeah. And let me add my own 1 cent to make it 3 cents. At the end of the day, they believe that formative years are between age 0 to age 7, or sometimes they say age 5. And if you look at most of the times, those childhood traumas are inflicted on us so that as we grow older, we carry those wounds with us. It's like you programmed the person at a very young age. When Herod was looking for Jesus Christ, he wanted to capture him when he was young, knowing that if I can wipe him out when he was young, which is the spirit behind what Herod was doing at that time, then there'd be no Messiah to save the world at the end of the day. But he couldn't succeed. Again, for the person who's listening, including myself, all those experiences we had when we were young as children, it was designed to actually derail us from the path of what we're called to be and who we're called to be. Please don't let that hold you bound for the rest of your life. Get help. Which I thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to wrap up in our formal way. Before I give my last 3 words, I'm going to ask you to look at the camera and speak into the camera and tell our audience, who cut across almost 3-4 continents now, whatever you feel like sharing to them. Encourage them, take a minute and inspire them, and then we'll wrap up.
1 minute to inspire. Well, I think I would say there's no one, not any single one of us, who would not like to be a positive influence to another person. But to influence anybody, it has to start with you influencing yourself. And the fact that you're the only person that's with you, more than anybody else, what you say to yourself will determine what you see. So I encourage everyone to take an inward look. Don't be afraid to sit with yourself and learn to love you, whatever that looks like for you, before you can love anybody else.
Wow. Thank you. Uche, I don't know who my next guest might be. Can you just ask them any question you want to, and we'll try and put that question across to them, whatever is on your mind. Whatever.
Well, it's the same question that I would have asked you, which is, why do you do what you do?
Why do you do what you do? All right. Thank you, Uche. Thank you. I don't have time to answer that question, but I promise you, I'll bring you back, and I think I answered this at the beginning when I started talking, But definitely I'll answer it again next time. Maybe you might be my host, and then I'll be on the other side as the guest, so you can have your way and ask me that question. For the next guest, Uche, thank you again for the Broken Not Shattered. Please, guys, wherever you are, follow us on our socials. It's the BNN podcast, Broken Not Shattered, and we're here just to tell stories and uplift and inspire people's life. In our famous 3 words: love, peace, and more grace. Uche, thank you, and God bless you. See you soon, one way or the other.
Thank you.